Through the years, there have been certain games that we've looked back on fondly and wondered why the hell there aren't more of them. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, it's a shame they don't make these 10 games anymore. Starting off with number 10, the Splinter Cell series. There are 3 series that people bring up when you talk about stealth games. Metal Gear Solid, of course, Thief, and Splinter Cell. These games were huge in the Xbox/Xbox 360 era. You can't underestimate how big and influential these games actually were. But when you look at the gaming landscape today, it's almost easy to just forget about them. Unlike the Metal Gear series, which has a really strong cultural footprint, and Thief, which hasn't seen any new titles, but dedicated fans are still making stuff for the game to this day, we don't hear about Sam Fisher anymore. Yes, Ubisoft announced a remake back in 2021, but it's been radio silent since then. We've heard almost nothing, if not nothing, since that initial announcement. And these games truly revolutionized the stealth genre. They basically invented the duck walk that every third-person game with stealth uses. Remember, the Metal Gear games just had walking and crawling. Sneak walking didn't enter the series until Peace Walker. Yes, Splinter Cell influenced Metal Gear. Not that it was first, it wasn't, but what really stands out in my mind is just how solid this series actually was. Sure, it went in some different directions near the end, with the more action-oriented Conviction.
Hold still and die!
But that game was basically the John Wick game we never got. A lot of good ideas in that one, even if in the end, it wasn't the hardcore stealth game a lot of fans of the series wanted. Blacklist was a return to form, even if losing Michael Ironsides as a voice of Sam Fisher did suck. I don't know, maybe Ubisoft actually will follow through on that announced reboot, but right now it seems like the series has been put back in the vault. Who knows when it'll finally come out again. Hopefully someday. At number 9 is the Deus Ex series. This highly regarded franchise has not gotten a single new entry since Mankind Divided back in 2017, which ended on an inconclusive cliffhanger at a point in the story that felt like there was another half of the game left to play. And there's a reason this game divided mankind so much. It's so hotly debated. There's a lot of good stuff in there. The hub city of Prague in particular is still stunning this day, but it feels like half a game. It's a pretty sour note for the series to go out on, especially after it seemed like the series was gonna blow up. The first Deus Ex was a cult classic. It's rough around the edges, but it was a wildly ambitious PC exclusive that, it's one of the best immersive sims of all time.
Never killed a cop before.
After the sequel bombed for various reasons, it seemed like the franchise was dead and buried until Deus Ex Human Revolution in 2011. Developed by Eidos Montreal and published by Square Enix, this game ended up being the most successful entry in the franchise by far, and it's a pretty great return to a long dormant franchise. Is it as ambitious and smart as the first game? No, but it's still a great cyberpunk game in its own right, and the art design was beyond stellar. They had a good thing going, and the publisher, Square Enix, went on to horribly mismanage the franchise, leading to a half-finished sequel that never got followed up on. Square sold the series and its developer off to Embracer back in 2022, which led fans to getting excited about a potential revival for the series, but, Embracer. That hasn't exactly gone great. So it's kind of hard to say what, if any, future the series has. I don't think these games are completely dead yet, but I don't expect to see anything from this franchise anytime soon. And number 8 is the Prototype series. A lot of people have a soft spot for these games, which take the standard open world superhero game formula and have some pretty unique ideas of their own. Made by Radical Entertainment and published by Activision, these games let you commit unspeakable acts of open world chaos. Pure id games, these games. Blunt, very stupid, but super fun to play. And a lot of that comes from Radical refining the ideas they came up with for Hulk Ultimate Destruction. Really, these games are basically spiritual successors to that game, making it sort of an unofficial trilogy. They're all good, but I think the common consensus is the first Prototype is the best of the two. It's not the most visually beautiful game. Honestly, kind of looks like a original Xbox game a lot of the time, but it's super satisfying to play. You're Alex Mercer, this guy infected with a prototype virus that makes him the superhero version of The Thing, more or less, and it's extremely fun. There's a ton of unique, amazing powers to unlock, and it's one of those games where you just get exponentially stronger as you go on. It's crazy satisfying, too. The sequel pulled back some of the experimental features, and it felt a little safer, but it looked a lot better, and it was still really fun. If these games were made by anyone else, they'd have a bright future, but they were unfortunately published by Activision, so they have to make Call of Duty money, or they're potentially on the chopping block. Eventually, Radical got the axe, and that was it for the new games in this franchise, unfortunately. And it sucks that they're gone, because they fill this certain niche that really seems missing in superhero games now. Like, all these new games force you to be a goody two-shoes, but Prototype really let you embrace the dark side, and by proxy, the sandbox elements of the experience. There really just aren't any new games like this anymore, and it's a shame. And number 7 is the Crysis series. The original Crysis was a revolutionary game in terms of its graphics and its freeform gameplay. The first game often would just give you a map, throw some objectives on there, and tell players to have at it. Deal with all this however you want. Your guy comes equipped with an experimental nano suit that gives you super strength, speed, armor, stealth. But what makes this game interesting is that you can only have one of these elements active at once. So you can turn invincible, but once you do, you're slow and unarmored. There was a certain level of finesse switching between the various suite functions that, the game felt very unique because of it. You were so powerful, and you could deal with the encounters the way you wanted. You could go in guns blazing, you could sneak around, you could throw guys around like ragdolls or drive vehicles, completely destroy buildings if you wanted. It was so open and freeing compared to most FPS games at the time. The sequels felt pretty consolidated and compromised. Consoleized was what they were often called, but there was still actually a lot of stuff to like about them. The visuals were still cutting edge. The nanosuit powers themselves were very satisfying, and the gameplay, that's kind of the place where the compromise was. It became a lot more linear, felt a little more like Call of Crysis. The first game was a quintessential PC experience, and the sequels were very console-oriented, so of course fans about the original were going to be sour. The series has been long dormant since the third game came out in 2013, but the developers, Crytek, they're still chugging along. They made the recent highly acclaimed Hunt Showdown, and back in 2022, they apparently announced a fourth Crysis game, but we haven't seen anything from it. The first game was a flawed classic, while the sequels were compromised. They were still solid games, but given where Crytek is now, if they did make a fourth Crysis, it could potentially be the thing that sort of unified it all into a non-flawed, incredible game. I don't know. It's just a shame the series has been dormant for so long. Moving on to number 6, it's the Ninja Gaiden series. The Ninja Gaiden trilogy remaster re-release mostly just served as a reminder of how much the series has fallen. Ninja Gaiden is one of the most recognizable video games ever. The original NES games are classic, the Xbox original reboot, one of the best action games of all time, and the Xbox 360 sequel is also pretty great. But after Ninja Gaiden 3 totally flopped on top of being terrible, the series has been on hold. Third-person action games are as big as they've ever been. Devil May Cry got an amazing sequel, so why not Ninja Gaiden? So much of that first game feels like it's way ahead of its time, but now that we're in the future, that it kind of helped to create, there's no Ninja Gaiden games in sight. It's not like Team Ninja is dead either. They're still out there making games. Last year they put out Wo Long, and it's a pretty damn good game. And this year we're getting the PlayStation exclusive Rise of the Ronin, and they're doing good work still. I'm very glad to see that, I'd just like to see a return to Ninja Gaiden at some point. It's got to happen eventually though, right? And number 5 is the Legacy of Kain series. We're going back a ways with this one. Legacy of Kain started back in the PS1 era and ended in the PS2 era. So it's a series that's been dead and buried a long time. But there are a lot of people out there pining for its potential return. Me, one of them. These games are best remembered for their storytelling and characters, but there was a lot of innovative stuff going on in the first 3 games as well. The world of Nosgoth was one of the most distinct and interesting fantasy worlds in gaming. There's a deep well of history and a backstory that could easily get expanded on in future games. But like so many Square Enix-owned properties, it was bought up by Embracer, and right now it's impossible to say what the hell is going to happen to it. Hopefully they sell it to another publisher. Maybe they'll hold the rights hostage for another 20 years. Who really knows? And number 4, Tony Hawk Pro Skater. For a brief, fleeting moment, it felt like maybe Activision would actually bring back these games. After years of mismanagement and some truly abysmal games like Tony Hawk Ride and Pro Skater 5, an actually good Tony Hawk game came out in 2020 from Vicarious Visions. The Tony Hawk 1 and 2 remaster reminded everybody about what was so great about these games. They were fun, easy to play, tough to master, and they offered something different. Even today, the game sold well, got rave reviews, but it's Activision we're talking about here. All they care about is the bottom line, so Call of Duty and Blizzard crap. And nothing against Call of Duty and Diablo. These things are good when they're done right, but in 2021, Vicarious Visions was absorbed by Blizzard, and their days of making independent games are over. Which is sad to see, because it's not just the Tony Hawk games that are dead, it's the entire extreme sports genre. Tony Hawk was pretty much the linchpin in these games, and they were all over the place in the PS1, PS2 era, but they're gone. There are a few indie games trying to keep that particular fire lit, but it's mostly extinguished. I would love to see a proper Tony Hawk follow-up, but even after Microsoft bought Activision, I don't see much chance of the series coming back, not anytime soon at least. And number 3 is the Fear series. The original Fear is as evergreen as FPS games get, even if the graphics are pretty dated at this point. The gameplay and effects are still absolutely holding up. On paper, the thing sounds like a mess. John Woo action movie inspired FPS that has the little girl from The Ring in it too. Sure, why not? But the end result is amazing, and it's a real shame we never got a follow-up. Sure, the sequel isn't bad, but it's not as fast and fluid as the original. Like Crysis, the sequel feels pretty limited by being built for consoles first, which was just an unfortunate byproduct of that era of games. It's not actually that bad of a game, it's just a big step down from the original. And the third game, which wasn't made by Monolith, barely deserves a mention. Fast-paced shooters are all the rage now, even if they're mostly going for a retro vibe. But imagine a Fear game with a Doom Eternal-sized budget. Like, that would be amazing. Monolith is still around too, they just haven't returned to their FPS roots since the first Mordor game, and they've been keeping busy with some kind of Wonder Woman game in the meantime. Under Warner Brothers' thumb, it's unlikely they're ever going to return to their original properties again, which is kind of a shame. I mean, at least there are indies that continue where they left off with stuff like Trepang 2, which is pretty great. Is it a new Fear game? No, I mean, it's an indie game. A really good indie game that isn't Fear, but does scratch the itch. And number 2 is the Burnout series. Of all the entries on this list, the lack of a new Burnout game baffles me probably the most. These games were extremely successful, highly rated, commercially successful games, but the moment Criterion got put on a Need for Speed game, it was over. I'm not sure if EA is aware, but it's possible to have 2 successful racing games. It doesn't just have to be Need for Speed. Like, obviously those are great games, but they're not exactly doing what Burnout did. Burnout was pure arcade driving joy. The speed was absurd, the crashes is hilariously brutal. They were just an absolute joy to play, especially Burnout 3. But all 3 were classics. Unlike most of the games on this list, they never really put out a game that led to flagging interest in the franchise. The devs didn't get sold off or anything. Criterion's still with EA, and they still own the Burnout license. It just really boils down to the fact that EA wants these guys working on Need for Speed games. That's really all it is. The problem with the Burnout games is that they feature extreme car deformation, which scares away the car manufacturers because they don't want to see their cars look bad in games. That's the reason why most of these games don't actually have major damage effect on cars. The manufacturers don't like it. They don't allow it. You want to use their license, you better not simulate that car getting destroyed, which, that's stupid. I'm just going to say it outright. It's just stupid. In no way does that make me view a car in normal conditions any differently. That's ridiculous. Whatever, though. If they wanted to make a new Burnout, they'd have to mostly use made-up cars, and I guess that's unacceptable to EA. It's like trying to make a sports game without an official license. They think nobody would play it without the recognizable names, but I'll be honest, I like the crashes more than I like Ford or like Chevrolet. Like those, whatever. Whatever. I'm getting heated. It sucks though, just because Burnout is still available and a completely viable franchise. Need for Speed is a bigger name with fewer potential issues, so that's the game that EA goes with. Like, imagine the kind of car destruction we could get with next-gen systems. Imagine a next-gen Burnout. That would be amazing. And finally, at number 1, the Metal Gear Solid series. Listen, it's great that Kojima is off doing his own thing with Death Stranding and OD or whatever the hell else he's cooking up, but it feels like there's just something missing in the games industry without Metal Gear Solid. Even without Kojima, it doesn't mean the series has to be dead. There's plenty of game franchise that evolved past their original creators. It is the stealth action franchise, and it's been sitting fallow since Metal Gear Survive, and that sucked. Konami is keeping the series alive in people's minds with stuff like the Master Collection and the MGS3 remake, but it is a franchise also built on innovation, so it doesn't feel right to simply focus on the past. I do kind of hope that the MGS3 remake is kind of being made with the intention of creating a team capable of making Metal Gear games, but it seems pretty likely that unless that comes to fruition, Konami isn't really capable of making them. The Silent Hill series is getting a major revival, and even if all those games end up flopping, I mean, look at the disaster that is Silent Hill Ascension. At least it's something. Metal Gear still has nothing in the foreseeable future, and that just feels wrong. Maybe it's better that the series die with some dignity rather than get farmed out to a bunch of third-party studios with Silent Hill. But on the other hand, who knows? They could do something interesting with the series. I mean, Metal Gear Rising was completely awesome. Wait a minute. Why is there not a Metal Gear Rising 2? That's the ultimate no-brainer. That's a Platinum game. Konami, you call up Platinum and say, hey, we want to do that again. And then you print money. Get it together, Konami. What the hell are you even doing? Couple of quick bonuses for you. Onimusha, which we got 5 of on PlayStation 2 and then nothing. Capcom remade the first game a few years back and then stopped there. With the success of games like Sekiro and Ghost of Tsushima, I think there's money to be made bringing back Onimusha. I mean, they made a Netflix show recently, so why not capitalize on some of that success? Next is Red Faction Guerrilla. We talk about this one nonstop at gameranx because obviously it's Red Faction Guerrilla. What else do I need to say? Who the hell wouldn't enjoy a new one of this? Unless it's like Armageddon, then it's whatever. But if it's like Guerrilla, do it now. The open world destruction up until the finals has literally been unmatched. And while the finals may scratch that itch to some extent, it is not a sandbox game, not an open world game, doesn't have a story, you really can't play it at your own pace. And man, playing that game makes me really want to have all that. Guerrilla came out on the Xbox 360. Hardware is so much stronger than the Xbox 360 now, but nobody's doing it. Next one is SSX. We mentioned Tony Hawk, and Tony Hawk, like I said, is kind of the linchpin of the extreme sports game genre. Without it, there's not really a tentpole property to attract a lot of attention, and I think the SX games sort of, they died out with that genre. You need a Tony Hawk or something that's just really, really good and gets everyone's attention for people to want to play those games, and I'd love to see another SXX game. Finally, the Mega Man Legends series. This one's just for me, but come on, Capcom. Now's the time to resolve that Legends 2 cliffhanger and bring the Blue Bomber back home from the moon. He's only been up there for, 23 years? These games are charming as hell, and they had a unique visual style that holds up probably better than almost anything else from that era. They could easily do a new one and retain the same visuals, and everyone would be happy with it. Also make a new Mega Man X game while you're at it, but a good one, not like that last one. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications, and as always, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter, Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.